My parents said I was too stressful for Christmas, let my sister call the shots. Now they're homeless while I'm spending the holidays in peace. I, a 31-year-old man, was sitting on my beat-up leather couch last December, surfing around Reddit on my phone while watching ESPN in the background. It was one of those dreary Sunday afternoons when you don't really care about the game but need anything to fill the emptiness of your lonely flat. Outside it was beginning to snow, one of those heavy silent snowfalls that makes the world seem quieter, the kind that accumulates up on windowsills and transforms streetlights into fuzzy halos. My apartment isn't particularly appealing. It's a one-bedroom in the less desirable section of town, but the rent is low enough that I can save a little money each month. The walls are too thin, the neighbors are excessively noisy, and the heater never works properly. But it is mine. I pay for it through my construction job, which is not glamorous by any means, but pays the bills. I've been with the same employer for 5 years, working my way up from basic laborer to crew supervisor. My hands are constantly rough, and my back is always sore, but there's something rewarding about making something with your own 2 hands that office workers will never comprehend. At the very least, it pays my bills, and it appears to do the same for others. When my phone rang with Dad's name, I nearly didn't answer. The last 3 times he called, it was to borrow money for a household emergency. First there was the water heater, then the property taxes, and then a plumbing disaster. But family remains family, right? That's what I kept telling myself anyway. That's what kept me sending money month after month, even though I should have been saving for my future. "Hey, what's up?" I asked, muting the television. "Jake," my father remarked. His voice seems casual, as if we just spoke yesterday, despite the fact that I hadn't heard from any of them in 3 weeks. "Listen, about Christmas this year, we think it's better if you don't come." I sat up straight and nearly dropped my phone. The game on the TV continued, but all I could hear was the blood rushing through my ears. "What?" I managed to ask, thinking that I had misheard him. He let out the frustrated sigh he'd mastered over the years, the one that makes you feel like you're still a 10-year-old questioning why the sky is blue. "Sierra's having a rough time lately. You know how sensitive she gets. All that tension between you two. It's just easier for everyone if you sit this one out." My sister Sierra, of course. The golden child. The one who could do no wrong, even when she completely fouled everything up. 2 years older than me, yet still handled as if she were made of glass. "Let me get this straight," I started slowly, trying to maintain my conversational tone. "You're uninviting me from Christmas, family Christmas, because Sierra is having a rough time?" "Don't make this a big deal, Jake," Dad said impatiently. I could almost picture him waving his hand dismissively, like he often did when I brought up something important to me. "It's just one day. You'll survive." That's when I felt something crack within me, like a wire that had been pulled too tightly for too long. All of my animosity, aggravation, and instances when I'd bitten my tongue for the sake of family harmony rose to the surface at once. "One day," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to keep it under control. "And what about the $7,000 I've paid toward your mortgage this year? Does that mean nothing? Am I just good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to sit at your table?" There was a long, uneasy hush on the other end of the telephone. I could hear him breathing, probably trying to figure out how to coax me into backing down, like he always did. Eventually, he cleared his throat. "That's different. You offered to help out. Don't throw that in our faces now." I stood up and paced my modest living room, the floor cracking beneath my feet. 3 steps forward, then 3 steps back. The space felt suddenly too small and restricting, like if the walls were closing in. "I've been paying your mortgage for 2 years, $7,000 just this year alone, ever since Sierra's stupid tech startup crashed and burned, and you guys bailed her out instead of making her face consequences like an actual adult. But sure, I offered to do it." "We appreciate it, Jake," he replied in that arrogant tone that made me want to smash a wall, the same tone he used when I informed him I was going to trade school instead of college. "But this isn't about money, it's about family. Sierra needs a stress-free environment right now. She's in a very vulnerable place." I stepped to my window and watched the snow build up on the street below. My reflection began, back at me. Tired eyes, 3-day stubble, the appearance of a man who has been taken advantage of for far too long. Behind me, on my coffee table, stood a stack of bills that I had been putting off paying, because as usual, I had sent my parents' mortgage money first. Family. I laughed, and the sound was terrible even to my own ears. It's funny how I'm family when you need my money but not when it's time to gather around the Christmas tree. It's funny how Sierra's vulnerable place is more important than the fact that I've been working tirelessly to keep a roof over all of your heads. You're being dramatic, he began, but I'd had enough of being stopped, dismissed, and serving as the family's ATM. No, Dad. You made your choice. Enjoy your Sierra-friendly Christmas, but don't expect another dime from me. Not tomorrow, not next month, not ever again. I hung up before he could react, throwing my phone onto the couch as if it were burning my hand. My heart was beating, and my hands were trembling with wrath and possibly relief. For once, I stood up for myself rather than simply accepting it. I grabbed my laptop from the side table and sat back down, launching my banking app. It was time to make a life-changing decision. Let me tell you about my ideal sister, Sierra, a 29-year-old woman. I need you to comprehend what I've been going through all these years. Honor roll student, college volleyball star, homecoming queen, mom's darling angel and dad's clever girl, the kind of sister who borrowed your belongings without asking and then behaved like you were the jerk when you demanded them back. She got a car for her 16th birthday, whilst I got a watch for mine. She never had to have a summer job since she needed to focus on her studies, yet I've been mowing lawns since I was 14. Our childhood bedroom doors reveal the entire story. Hers was decorated with ribbons, medals, and prizes. Mine received only one participation award from Little League, which Dad described as a good start, with a disappointed expression in his eye. She resigned her solid marketing job 2 years ago to start this innovative fitness software called Fit Focus, or something like that, with the firm belief that it would make millions. Mom and Dad devoured it like it was gospel truth. She's so entrepreneurial, Mom would exclaim during our occasional phone calls. That's my girl, taking risks, Dad would say at family dinners where I was still invited back then. They didn't only offer her emotional support. They went all in, remortgaging their nearly paid-off property to provide her with $80,000 in launch funds. They did not even hesitate. When did I decide that I wanted to go trade school rather than college? That was short-sighted, Jake. You're wasting your potential. When did I need $2,000 for my certification courses? We're not made of money. What about Sierra's half-baked app idea? Here's our life savings and the deed to our house. The application launched, crashed, and burnt. The entire project failed within 3 months due to server difficulties, design defects, and a lack of a marketing strategy. My sister's amazing notion turned out to be little more than an Instagram filter plus a calorie tracker packed in a clunky interface that crashed all the time. She hadn't even bothered to test it thoroughly before launching. Why should she? Nothing had ever been difficult for her before. Mom and Dad were suddenly on the hook for a hefty mortgage that they couldn't afford, despite Dad's postal worker salary and Mom's part-time receptionist job. They were going to lose their house. I grew up in this house. Despite everything, the house held some pleasant memories for me. And guess who stepped forward? Me. Jake. The disappointment. The one who squandered his potential with construction work. I was not living up to the family name by working with my hands. I began covering their mortgage payments. $583 each month. $7,000 this year alone. Money came directly out of my account while Sierra was uploading pictures of her healing retreats and her new MacBook Pro, which she allegedly needed for her job search. I've never complained. I just gritted my teeth and sent the money each month. I picked up extra shifts, worked on weekends. I skipped vacations. I drove my 10-year-old automobile with 170,000 miles on it, hoping it wouldn't break down. I lived in my terrible apartment, with noisy neighbors and erratic heating, because that was all I could afford while supporting 2 households. Sierra was living rent-free in their basement, raiding their fridge, watching Netflix, and discussing her next big idea, which was, definitely going to work out this time, guys. For real. Do you know what the worst part was? She never said, thank you. Never acknowledged that her failure had consequences, and that I bore the brunt of them. At Thanksgiving, which I was still welcome to at the time, she had the audacity to ask why I didn't have a real job with my full potential, so I could afford a better automobile. I almost choked on my turkey. And now? Now I was not invited for Christmas, the one day of the year when even the most dysfunctional families pretend to enjoy one another for a few hours. The day I'd been secretly looking forward to, because it meant a great lunch that I didn't have to cook myself, and the sense of belonging somewhere, even if just for a couple hours. I grabbed my laptop and logged into the bank account I had set up particularly for their mortgage payments. My name was on it since Dad couldn't figure out internet banking, and Mom simply laughed and said, "You're so good with money, Jake." There it was. $7,000 gone this year, Every dollar gained through backbreaking effort, lugging supplies in freezing temperatures and scorching heat. Each payment reminded me of the family who only wanted my pocketbook. I went to the automatic payment options and chose to cancel all scheduled payments. My finger briefly hovered over the confirm button before hitting it firmly. A message appeared, stating that all scheduled payments had been canceled. I went a step further and moved the funds I'd set aside for their January payment back into my own account before closing the laptop with a satisfying snap. For the first time in 2 years, I felt able to breathe again. I felt like I was regaining control of my own life. Let's see how exposed Sierra feels once the bank begins sending foreclosure notices. The next few weeks went by as usual, except that I was suddenly $583 richer every month. It's amazing how much breathing room this gives a guy. I even bought myself a new pair of work boots with extra arch support, which helps when you're on your feet for 10 hours a day. A modest luxury, but it felt enormous. Snow continued to accumulate outdoors. December in Michigan is no joke. The temperatures plunged into the teens, and the wind chill made them feel like negative figures. I kept showing up at job sites, swinging hammers and running saws, returning home with sawdust in my boots and concrete dust in my lungs. Everything became more difficult as the temperature dropped. Materials refused to cooperate, equipment took longer to warm up, and my fingers remained numb despite wearing heavy gloves. But you know what? I didn't mind it as much because every dime I earned was finally mine. There have been no calls from the family yet. For once, I just wanted to maintain the steady pace of my own existence. Friday night, I met up with my friend Chris at a pizza joint near his apartment. We've been pals since we were kids, sneaking cigarettes under the high school gym. He's now a plumber, earning decent money when people's pipes burst in the winter, which is pretty much a guaranteed income stream in Michigan from December to March. The place was full with Friday revelers, couples on dates, families with boisterous children, and groups of friends beginning their weekend. Classic rock playing over the speakers, the scent of pepperoni and cheese in the air, and the continual talk of people having a good time. Chris passed a soda over the table to me, giving me a skeptical look. "You look different," he commented. "Less, I don't know," stretched out. "Like you're not carrying a piano on your back anymore." I took a long sip and let it all out. Dad's call, Sierra's turmoil, being barred from Christmas after covering their mortgage for 2 years in a row. Chris's jaw dropped, a half-eaten slice of pizza frozen halfway into his lips. "You're kidding me. They actually uninvited you after you've been paying their mortgage?" I nodded and grabbed a chunk of the pie between us. "Yep. So I canceled all the payments. They don't know yet." He threw his head back and laughed so loudly that the table next to us looked up. "Holy man, that's cold as ice. When will they find out?" "End of the month, when the payment doesn't go through. Right after Christmas." I couldn't stop the grin from creeping across my face. First, they have the perfect family Christmas without me. Then they get a call from the bank regarding their missed payment. Chris lifted a glass. "Don't be a doormat anymore." We clinked our drinks. For the first time in years, I felt in charge of my own life. "You know they're going to freak out, right?" Chris asked, wiping the pizza grease from his beard. "Like a nuclear meltdown level freak out." I shrugged. "Let them. I'm done caring." "Good for you, man," he said, nodding. "About damn time. I've been watching you kill yourself for them for 2 years while they treat you like garbage. Should have cut them off a long time ago." He was correct, of course. I should have. But there's something about family, some foolish, ingrained loyalty, that makes you keep trying even when it's evident you're the only one making an attempt. The days went by. For Christmas I purchased myself a 55-inch smart TV that works. Why not? It was my money. I even got one of those fake trees from Walmart and placed it in the corner of my living room. I put a couple of wrapped presents under it, just things I bought for myself, but it made the room look festive. If I didn't go to their Christmas party, I'd make my own. Meanwhile, neither of them had called. Not Mom, to make sure I was okay. Not Dad to apologize. Sierra would never thank me for providing a roof over her ungrateful head for the past 2 years. Just silence. And for once, the silence felt lovely. I went grocery shopping and splurged on ingredients for a proper Christmas dinner. Not the dried-out turkey and lumpy mashed potatoes Mom used to make, but a lovely steak, some roasted potatoes, and fresh green beans. The type of meal I never bothered to prepare for myself, since it seemed like too much work. As I was packing my cart, I ran across Mrs. Peterson, an old neighbor from when I was growing up. She seemed surprised to see me. "Jake. How are you, dear?" Getting ready for Christmas with your parents. I just saw your mother yesterday at the store. She was buying so much food. As usual, that woman always cooks enough for the army. I forced a smile. Actually, I'm not going this year. Just having a quiet one at my place. Her face fell. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I lied. Just a change of plans this year. As I went away, I imagined them putting up their normal holiday decorations. Mom hung the stockings, one for each of them, but none for me this year. Dad battled with the tree lights, while Sierra sat on the couch, most likely reading through Instagram rather than helping. I put a container of ice cream in my trolley and smiled. They didn't know what I was on my way. The first communication arrived 3 days before Christmas. I was at Home Depot, getting materials for a side job I'd picked up to fill the idle week between Christmas and New Year's, when my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Jake, honey, the bank called about the mortgage payment. They said it didn't go through. Is everything okay with the account? I slid the phone back into my pocket without answering. Allow them to sweat. 2 hours later, Dad called. I immediately sent it to voicemail. His message was less appealing. Jake, what's going on with the mortgage payment? Call me back right away. I did not. Then followed Sierra's text, usually the last to notice a problem, but the first to make demands. Jake, Mom and Dad are freaking out about the mortgage. Fix it now. I was sitting on my new couch, watching TV, and eating pizza as a treat when I decided to answer. Not to her, but to Mom. Sorry, can't help with the mortgage anymore. Tight budget. Christmas is expensive, you understand. Short. Director. They gave me a casual dismissal. Her response arrived nearly immediately. What? But we're counting on that money, Jake. We can't make the payment without you. I took another mouthful of pizza, allowing the cheese to stretch and eventually snap. That's tough. Maybe Sierra can help out. She lives there rent-free anyway. Then I silenced my phone and returned to the nature documentary I was watching, which was about penguins. Interesting stuff. The following morning, I had 8 missed calls and 3 voicemails from Dad, each one angrier than the last. The final one was an actual explosion. Jake, you can't just stop paying with no warning. The bank says we're already late. Call me back now. Sierra sent a series of progressively frantic texts. WTF, Jake. Answer your phone. You're ruining everything on purpose. Mom is crying because of you. Good. Let her cry. Allow them to experience what it's like to be the people no one cares about. I texted Mom once again. Sorry. Already spent the money on Christmas gifts for myself. Good luck with the payment. I then blocked all 3 of them. Christmas was just 2 days away, and for the first time, I was looking forward to spending it alone. That afternoon, I saw my neighbor Tom in the parking lot. He's a nice guy who works nights as a security guard and always brings in my things while they're waiting outside my door. Hey man, you're looking cheerful, he commented as he assisted me in transporting my new TV box from the car. Hot date for Christmas? I laughed. Nah, just treating myself this year, family-free holiday. Lucky you, he grumbled, guiding the box through my tight threshold. I've got the in-laws coming. 3 days of my father-in-law telling me I mounted the TV wrong, and my mother-in-law rearranging my kitchen cabinets. We brought the TV inside, and I offered him a couple of Pepsi from my fridge in appreciation. As he left, he turned back. Hey, if you're on your own for Christmas, why don't you come over for dinner? Rachel always makes too much food anyway. No pressure, just if you want to. The offer astonished me. It was the first genuine invitation I had received in a long time. Thanks, man. I'll think about it. I thought about it. It was great to know that someone wanted me around for Christmas, and not just my money. Christmas morning brought another heavy snowstorm. I slept in until 10 o'clock, which is something I never get to do because of my job schedule. There is no alarm, no need to rush to the employment location, and no family duties. Simply peace and quiet. I cooked myself a full breakfast, bacon, eggs, the works, poured some fine coffee I had purchased, and put on the Christmas music channel just because I could. Around noon, someone began hammering on my door, the type of pounding that indicates business. Not Tom's friendly knock or the delivery man's fast rap. Through the peephole I saw Dad standing there in his winter coat, his face flushed with either cold or fury, most likely both, and his breath creating small clouds in the icy corridor air. I opened the door while keeping the chain on. Merry Christmas, I replied, relishing the way his eyes furrowed. What the hell do you think you're doing? He exclaimed, his voice echoing down the hallway. The bank called again yesterday. We're late on the payment. I leaned against the doorframe. Yeah, that happens when you don't pay your bills. You know we can't afford it without you, he said, peering through the crack in the door at my apartment. I could see him noticing the Christmas tree, wrapped presents, and the new television in the background. Funny how that works, I said quietly. I can't afford to help people who don't consider me family enough to spend Christmas with. His face became an even deeper shade of red. This is childish, Jake. This is about our house. Your mother is beside herself. Should have thought about that before you kicked me out of Christmas. I shrugged. How's Sierra handling the stress? Still feeling vulnerable. This isn't about Sierra. It's always about Sierra, I interrupted him. Even now you're standing at my door on Christmas Day, not to invite me over, or apologize, but to demand money. That's all I am to you guys. An ATM. He changed tactics, his voice suddenly pleading. Jake, please. We'll lose the house. We're already behind. Not my problem anymore, I answered, shutting the door. He kept hammering and cursing before giving up and leaving. I heard his car start, the engine straining in the cold before eventually turning over. I returned to my Christmas brunch, turned up the music, and made another cup of coffee. For the first time in years, I felt able to breathe. My phone flared up with a text from an unfamiliar number. Mom was using Sierra's phone to bypass my block. Jake, please, we need you. We're family. I wrote back, families don't uninvite members from Christmas to keep the golden child comfortable. Families don't take $7,000 from someone and then throw them away. Merry Christmas. Then I blocked Sierra's phone number and spent the rest of the day in glorious tranquil solitude. I cooked my steak properly, medium rare, just like I like it. The potatoes were crunchy on the exterior and fluffy inside. I ate at my small table with genuine napkins and a real plate, rather than the paper ones I usually use. I even got myself a tiny apple pie for dessert. After dinner, I opened the gifts I'd wrapped for myself, which included new headphones, a couple of video games I'd been wanting, and a decent watch to replace the cheap one that had finally died after 5 years. Small things, but things I denied myself because the $583 had to go to them first. As I was trying out the headphones, there was another faint knock on the door. Mom. I ignored it, cranked up the level on my headphones, and pretended I could not hear. She knocked for a while before giving up. Later I discovered a card she had slid under the door. Inside came the standard generic Christmas message, signed Love, Mom and Dad. It wasn't even written personally for me, it was a store-bought card that they presumably had plenty of. There was no indication of expressing sorry for not inviting me. There was no acknowledgement of anything I had done for them. Simply a card that might have been handed to anyone. I threw it in the garbage and returned to my tranquil evening. Around 8 p.m., Tom texted to ask if I wanted to come over for dessert and games. I took him up on it and spent the evening with his family, playing board games and eating handmade cookies. His kids were actually rather cool. We discussed construction because the 10-year-old was quite interested in it. His wife, Rachel, was friendly and accommodating, never making me feel like a charity case. I walked back to my place at around midnight. The snowfall had finally ceased. The world is silent and still. For a family-free Christmas, it hadn't been too horrible. The week between Christmas and New Year's was when things truly became bad for them. On the 26th, I got up early to go to my side job, which was to hang drywall in a basement remodeling for 6 hours. The work was difficult, but the compensation was decent, and it kept my mind occupied. When I arrived home, sweating and covered in drywall dust despite my mask, Chris was waiting in his truck in the parking lot. Dude, he began when I arrived. You've got to hear this. My cousin Tommy lives down the street from your parents, remember? I nodded, opened my door and beckoned for him to enter. They're in full panic mode, he said, following me inside and settling on my couch. Your dad's going around to everyone in the family asking for loans. Your mom was crying at your aunt's house yesterday, and apparently, Sierra's throwing absolute fits. I opened the fridge and grabbed 2 Pepsi, giving one to Chris. How bad is it? Bad, Chris said, grinning. They missed the payment completely. Bank sent some kind of notice. And get this. Your dad had to cancel the cable and internet to try to scrape together some cash. That meant Sierra couldn't even binge Netflix in the basement anymore. That concept made me grin. Did your cousin say anything else? I inquired, relaxing into my new chair, another Christmas present for myself. Yeah, actually, the best part, your sister finally got a job. I almost choked on my drink. You're kidding me. Doing what? Cashier at Kroger, he said, laughing. Apparently she cried the whole first day because someone yelled at her about coupons. I leaned back, an odd combination of delight and something resembling sadness sweeping over me. Sierra had never had to deal with the real world before. She had never been shouted at by a client, had her feet ache after an 8-hour workday, or been concerned about whether her income would support her expenditures. "Welcome to the working world, sis," I mumbled. "It's not all Instagram filters and startup dreams out here." That night another SMS came in from an unknown number, my aunt this time. "Jake, honey. Your parents are in real trouble. They might lose the house. Can't you help them? Whatever happened between you, they're still your family." I texted back, "Ask Sierra to help. She's lived there rent-free for 2 years while I paid $7,000 toward their mortgage. They uninvited me from Christmas because I made Sierra uncomfortable. They made their choice." I haven't heard back from her. The next day, I was at the gym when my phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. This time, I responded. "Hello," I said between sets of the bench press. "Jake," said my mother, her voice weak and wavering. "The bank, they're threatening foreclosure if we don't catch up on payments. We don't have the money." I sat up, wiping the sweat from my forehead with a towel. "That sounds like a problem for you, Sierra, and Dad to figure out." "Please," she implored, and I could hear her cry. "We'll lose the house. We have nowhere to go." "Should have thought about that before you chose Sierra over me," I told you. "Jake, it wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," I interrupted her. 2 years I've been paying your mortgage. 2 years of extra shifts and weekend work. And the one time I want to be included in a family holiday, I'm told I'm not welcome because precious Sierra needs a stress-free environment? Well, now you can all be stressed together." There was a long pause, broken only by her muffled sobbing. "Jake," she finally whispered. "We're sorry. We made a mistake. Please help us." "Too late," I answered before hanging up. New Year's Eve arrived, and Tom invited me over again for a small group. Him, Rachel, another couple from the building, and I. We played cards, ate way too many snacks, and watched the ball drop on television. At midnight, my phone lit up with another text from my aunt. "Your parents got an eviction warning. 30 days to pay or get out. Please, Jake. They have nowhere to go." I showed it to Tom, who shook his head in shock. "Man, that's rough. Family drama at its finest, huh?" "Yeah," I said, putting away my phone without responding. "But not my circus, not my monkeys anymore." Rachel, who had clearly been filled in by Tom, offered me a compassionate look. "Family can be the worst sometimes. But also the best. It's complicated." I nodded without saying anything. I was not prepared to forgive them. Perhaps I never would be. Later that night, as I walked back to my apartment, I realized I had spent more time with Tom's family in the previous week than I had with my own in months. These folks, who barely knew me, treated me with more warmth and real concern than those who were meant to love me unconditionally. Perhaps family was not about blood after all. Perhaps it was about who truly cared about you as a person, rather than what you could do for them. January dragged by, chilly and unforgiving. I kept busy at work, saved the money that would have gone toward their mortgage, and even began attending a weekly poker night with some of the construction crew members. My life was settling into a new rhythm that was not centered on my family's needs. For the first time in years, I met Lena, a girl who worked at a coffee shop near my flat. Nothing serious yet. Just casual conversation every time I stopped in. But she had scribbled her phone number on my cup last week, and I was gathering up the nerve to call it. Then, one freezing Sunday morning, there was another knock on my door. This time, all 3 of them, Mom, Dad, and Sierra, stood in the hallway, looking as if they hadn't slept in days. Mom's eyes were red from crying. Dad looked 10 years older than the last time I saw him. Sierra, gorgeous, precious Sierra, had black circles under her eyes and was dressed in a Kroger uniform underneath her coat. "Can we come in?" Dad inquired, his voice losing the power it previously had. I pondered for a moment before stepping aside. They walked in quietly, taking in my new TV, the fresh paint on the walls. Another weekend project I had time for now that I wasn't working additional jobs to finance their mortgage. And the general sensation that I was doing just fine without them. Sierra mumbled, "Nice place." And I noticed a flash of hatred in her eyes. "What do you want?" I inquired, not offering them chairs. Dad cleared his throat. "The bank. They're foreclosing. We have 2 weeks to get out of the house." I folded my arms. And we have nowhere to go," Mom explained, her voice shaking. We can't afford an apartment. With the credit hit we're taking, no one will rent to us. I glanced at each one in turn. Sounds like a real problem. What does it have to do with me? Sierra burst into tears, not the charming, delicate crying she typically used to get her way, but ugly, desperate cries. We up, okay? Is that what you want to hear? We up. I be up. I'm sorry. Mom looked surprised by her language. Dad only stared at the floor. We were wrong, Dad said gently. About Christmas. About everything. We took you for granted. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. Did you take me for granted? You treated me like an ATM for 2 years, and then threw me away because I was no longer convenient. That's not taking me for granted. It's exploitation. We know, Mom whispered. We were terrible to you. I turned to Sierra. And you, the queen of the castle. Nothing to say? She wiped her nose on her sleeve and appeared smaller than I had ever seen her. I've been working at Kroger, she said, as if that clarified everything. People are so mean. My feet hurt all the time, and I only make $400 a week. Welcome to the real world, I responded. The one I've been living in while you played entrepreneur with Mom and Dad's money, then sat on your ass while I paid the price for your failure. I know, she said, new tears flowing down her cheeks. I was spoiled, and entitled, and selfish. I never thanked you. I never even thought about what you were doing for us. Dad stepped forward. We're not here to ask for money, Jake. It astonished me. Then what do you want? Forgiveness, Mom replied. And a place to stay. Just until we can get back on our feet. I looked at them in bewilderment. You want to live here? With me? In my one-bedroom apartment? Dad nodded. We have nowhere else to go. I began laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation was overwhelming. Let me get this straight, I remarked when I could talk again. You uninvite me from Christmas because I make Sierra uncomfortable. You took my money for 2 years without a single thank you. And now that I've cut you off and you're facing the consequences of your actions, you want to move in with me. They looked at each other and then back at me. We have nowhere else to go, Mom insisted, as if it altered anything. I stepped to the window and looked down at the snow-covered parking lot. For 2 years, I had been at their mercy, straining myself to exhaustion for people who didn't even want me at Christmas dinner. Now they were at my mercy, desperate, destitute, and seeing me as their only alternative. I turned around to face them. No. No? Dad reiterated. No, I confirmed. You can't stay here. Not now. Not ever. But where will we go? Mom questioned, her eyes welling up. I shrugged. That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices. Now you live with them. Please, Jake, Sierra begged. I'll sleep on the floor. I'll pay rent. I'll do anything. Like you should have been doing for the past 2 years, I responded with. Too late now. Dad's expression tightened. So that's it? You're just going to throw your family out on the street? Family? I repeated. You stopped being my family the moment you decided I wasn't good enough to sit at your Christmas table. The only thing you wanted from me was my money. Well, the ATM is closed. I went to the door and opened it. I think we're done here. They remained still at first, as if they could not believe what was occurring. Jake, Mom tried once more. Please reconsider. We're begging you. It feels terrible, doesn't it? I grumbled. To beg someone for help and be refused. To be thrown away when you're no longer useful. Maybe now you understand how I felt. They filed out one by one. Sierra persevered, her Kroger name badge glinting in the hallway light. Where will you go? I inquired, not because I cared, but because I needed to understand the extent of their despair. Mom's coworker said we could use her garage for a few days, he remarked. After that, I don't know. I nodded. Good luck with that. As I closed the door, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For 2 years, I'd carried them, paid their bills, handled their difficulties, and played the responsible role while they coddled Sierra and took advantage of my kindness. They are now gone. They had their own concerns. And I was free. I grabbed my phone and scrolled to the number Lena had scrawled on my coffee cup last week. Perhaps it was time to experience what else life has to offer aside from family strife. The next day at work, one of my co-workers inquired if I had a good weekend. I grinned and mentioned that it had been productive. I did not reveal my family's visit or their dire position. These were no longer my worries. For the first time in years, I was providing for myself. They might lose everything.